Okay, so I'm going to talk about the 5 hindrances. I'll talk about meditation a little bit first, and I'll talk about each of the hindrances, and then I'll talk about the 5 spiritual faculties and how they can very specifically be paired with the hindrances and be a big help. So, because I think, what makes meditation difficult are the hindrances. I think if there were no hindrances, there'd be 100 people here tonight, or at least more. But meditation is hard, and people give up, and it's hard because of the hindrances. So, and there's other reasons meditation is difficult. It's difficult to sit still because of our culture, because we're used to this constant stimulation. And we kind of get to the point where we spend every minute being stimulated. And our days, are just filled with computers and texting and going here and doing this. And there's not much, there's not many cracks in the day where our mind can just, be on its own. And, we don't want to be bored. I remember being told only boring people are bored. That was a saying. So, but, just when we do certain kinds of activities like folding the laundry or going for a walk where where we're not frantic, Rick Maddock has talked about the neurologist who comes to this group sometimes and is a PhD neurologist at UC Davis and has all kinds of insights into how our minds work. He says that when we're doing something like folding the laundry, our mind goes into what's called default mode, and that it's a kind of autopilot, kind of a daydream. We let the mind wander. And it's in default mode that a lot of creative things actually happen. Disparate ideas can combine with one another, and we can get insights that we didn't previously have. You know how you sometimes solve a problem when you stop thinking about it. And like, oh, I can't think of that, but if I just forget about it, it'll come to me. I've said that. I know I've said those words, and you probably have too. So that's the power of default mode. And Rick says we also enter a very special area of the mind that he calls autobiographical planning. And this is an area of the mind when we're in that default mode where we review our past and we take note of the big moments. We set goals. We figure out what steps we need to take to reach those goals. So that's a very important part of living our lives, to bring our awareness to that. And it happens in this default mode when it's not something that we do so intentionally. It's something that happens when we stop doing. We do less. So that's the power of meditation, is this this quietness and reclaiming those cracks in the day. And I spend a lot of time on my computer. I had a boss, Marty, a long time ago. He had a computer company, and I worked for him. And he had come through DEC, Digital Equipment Corporation, which was a big computer company, the biggest back in the beginning. They kind of came up with the mini computer. So until DEC came along, if you wanted a computer, you could spend, $500,000 on a mainframe. That was the only option. But when the PDP-11 and the minis came along, you could get a computer for, a lot less, thousands, not hundreds of thousands. So Marty worked for DEC, but then after he got off from work, he worked in a little town in Massachusetts. He would go to the prison and counsel the prisoners. who were mostly drug addicts. And he always said, have you noticed that the in counseling at the prison, I talk about my users. And then when I go to work at the computer company, I talk about my users. And there's something to that, that you could either take drugs and be a user, or you can use your computer and be a user. It always struck me as interesting phraseology that was telling some kind of truth. So when we meditate, we really are trying to do nothing. We're not eating, we're not talking on the phone, we're not even planning for the future or remembering the past. We're just taking time to do absolutely nothing. We close our eyes, we don't even look at the outside world. So in our culture, our mind we experience everything through our mind. We rely on our mind. We rely on our mind to be happy, content, as emotionally stable as possible, to be kind, to be thoughtful, to be considerate in our relationships. We depend on the mind to help us focus, to let us focus, to be creative, to perform our best at all the things that we do. But we don't, well, you're meditators, so you do. But the culture in general doesn't see the value of taking care of the mind. So we take care of our teeth, we take care of our clothes, we go to the dry cleaner, but we don't see the value, we don't take care of our minds. So I'm just curious, what motivated any of you who wish to share, if you remember when you first started meditating and what motivated you. I think a lot of times in my life I've done the right thing for the wrong reasons. And I'm pretty sure I started meditating because I had a boyfriend who was meditating. So I'll set the stage so now you don't have to be embarrassed of anything, because there's nothing, you can't top that, I bet. So, but you might have had a very good reason. So if you would like to share what you were motivated to, why you were motivated, if you remember, to first meditate.
Yeah, I started meditating whenever I got really stressed out, because I heard that meditating would calm one down. So so I'd be fine and wouldn't meditate until something really stressed me out. And then I would meditate.
Pretty good reason.
Mm.
Diane?
Me too. For my own mental health, I think that I was always more outwardly motivated, aware out here, and not so aware in here. And so that's been a big change for me, is to move my awareness internally. It's taken me a while to figure out that I didn't have a lot of control of what happened outside. I had more control of what happened inside.
Good point. Thanks.
So I'll share mine. I had a boyfriend who was into meditation.
All right, we're sisters.
Yes, we are. But I think it was more than that. I was in college and I was really into Eastern thought, and I was really into yoga. So it definitely appealed to me a lot to do it. And when I look back on it now, I really needed to reduce my stress. I was very stressed. So I think it was very helpful for that. And I didn't stop doing it on a daily, basis for, a long time.
Thanks, Anita.
I was exposed to meditation as a very young child in
Gabrielle, can you speak a little louder?
Oh, can you hear me now?
Yeah, that's better.
Okay. I was exposed to meditation as a young child in Catholicism. And at that time, it was called practicing the presence of God, or what Father Thomas Keaton used to call centering prayer. And what I found at that point as a child is that I was really experiencing a sense of the sacred, because the nuns would take us into church and make us sit down and be quiet. And Catholics really know how to create the sense of awe and wonder, if you know what I mean, in their churches. I really enjoyed that as a child, but I didn't understand how important it was. And then when I was 8, I was forcibly removed from my grandparents, where I was in a safe environment. And my mother, who was mentally ill, attained custody of me. And she was one of those people who can act normally in public, and behind closed doors, she was just a terror and had explosive, raging anger that was often very violent. So for several years, I was stuck in that environment, pardon me, and really didn't quite know how to cope with it. And then when I was 12, I found a paperback book by a yoga instructor named Richard Hedelman. And it was just a very simple set of instructions about how to do breath-related focus, or focusing on a candle, things like that. And it really retrieved me from the utter interior chaos and terror that I was experiencing. It's not that I didn't have those emotions, but it certainly wasn't as intense anymore. And he was the first person I ever encountered who said, you can choose your emotions. And being around a totally out of control emotional adult, I had no idea that you can choose your emotions. And then by the time I was 20, I spent a year in a Buddhist monastery. And I wasn't really sure why I wanted to put up with so much discipline, but I simply saw how peaceful and kind and loving these monks were. And that's when I realized I don't quite know why they're doing it, but this is something I need to do. And now I'm 68 and I haven't changed my mind yet.
Thank you, Gabrielle. Jim?
Yeah, to the best of my recollection, I can't remember what year it was. We were living in La Cañada, Southern California, and the Dalai Lama was coming to present Kala Chakra initiation ceremonies, as I recall, down in near the beach at a big center. And my wife said, "Let's go." And I said, "Go to what?" And she said, "The Dalai Lama is going to be there." And I said, "The Dalai who?" kind of thing. And so we went and attended for 3 days. And this guy's presence was such, as anybody who has, I think, seen him even on television, but let alone in person, was so as Gabrielle was sort of suggesting, calming and peaceful and magnificent, that I sort of became, that is when I started reading. Thereafter, I started reading about Buddhism and just on and on. And then, did meditation personally down there, but not with a group until I moved here to Auburn, and discovered our group. So that's it.
Thank you. A great story. Very moved by him as well.
Yeah.
Had a very early experience where he was speaking at a monastery in New Jersey. I lived on the East Coast, and I was sitting 10 feet from him all day.
Oh,
he wasn't speaking English yet, but he had a translator and a good, good. And there were like 1,000 people on the grass. And he took us on a trip. I'll never forget that.
You took a trip and you didn't have to smoke anything. I was muted.
No, it was cheap. Well, if anybody else wants to share, just pop in when it seems like a good time. Let me talk a little bit now about the hindrances, because I truly believe that the hindrances are what make meditation difficult for us. So there are 5 of them, and I'll just go over them and talk about each one a little bit first. So the first one is sensual desire, also known as greed, craving, pleasure seeking. And, it's a very powerful hindrance because we're wired. Tony Bernard always points out how we're wired for wanting. That's what we do. We want. And I loved his image where he said, he's another teacher who comes to this group sometimes, if you don't know. He says, you walk into a restaurant and you pick up the menu and you don't say what would be unpleasant. It's like, what would be pleasant? You're looking for the most pleasant thing you can find on that menu. And that's how we get up in the morning and we think like, what would be pleasant? We're always looking for the pleasant thing. The problem in meditation is that we desire something different from what is. So when desire hits us, we cannot be with things as they are. And since meditation is really just about sitting still and being with things as they are, being present, opening your mind to being present, to the present moment, and with things just as they are. But as soon as desire strikes, we'd like things to be different than they are. We'd like to have whatever it is. And actually, part of it is that we don't trust reality. It doesn't seem as reliable as the thing that we're desiring. We don't want to give up the fantasy of the sensual pleasure because we prefer it to the dubious pleasure of reality. Of course, being present to reality brings more joy than anything, but that's a long discovery process. There's something called the 8 worldly winds in the Buddhist teaching, and I'd like to just mention them. These are pairs, 4 pairs of things that we desire and things that we are averse to. So they are fame and disrepute. So, we're probably not longing to be famous, but I remember when a newspaper reporter wrote an article in Philadelphia in the big newspaper about my artwork. And, I knew a lot of people, maybe 1 million people read that article, and I was excited. It was very, very exciting. So fame, and then the opposite, disrepute. Praise and blame. Pleasure and pain. Gain and loss. So these are worldly winds. These are, there's no security in a storm. These are winds that are blowing. But they're things that we want. We want pleasure. We want gain. And we think that our happiness lies in these worldly winds. I just think it's a nice list to know. So the first 2 hindrances, desire and aversion are paired. They're the opposite of each other. They're actually the same in that they both want things to be different from how they are. One of them is leaning in to get more. The other is pushing reality away because it doesn't like it. So just to talk about ill will just a little, ill will is quite a spectrum. It can go from, I wish my eye would stop itching. How am I supposed to meditate with this itching eye? I can't think about anything but this eye is itching so much, right? And we spiral into an aversion. All the way up to anger at somebody, and it can morph all the way into hatred and wanting to harm somebody. So it's a long spectrum. And I guess one of the first things I want to say about the hindrances is that it's not personal. All 5 of them come to all of us. So if you catch yourself feeling ill will towards someone, and you feel that hatred in your heart, it's going to happen sometimes because we're human beings and all of these things come to us. So desire, greed, fantasizing about things rather than being with reality, these things can really take over. And the same with ill will. So with desire and ill will, it's not a matter of just stopping, because that doesn't work. Instead, it's to turn the attention around 180 degrees and feel what it's like to be caught in desire. Feel what it's like to be trapped in ill will or hatred. What is it like to be blinded by the object of your desire? Blinded. And I always think of the moth, because he knows not that he's so attracted to this flame, and that's going to kill him. And he can't see that he's caught in an obsession, and we're just like that. And to our own, and it's damaging to us. It's a good image, I think. The Buddha said that if you have ill will towards your enemy, you're doing them a favor, because you're doing more inner harm to yourself than your enemy could ever do. So ill will and desire, a pair. So the second 2, items 3 and 4, are also a pair. And they are, you hear it called Sloth and Torpor, thanks to the Victorians who translated the suttas. And the opposite being restlessness and anxiety. So in one of them, you don't have any energy. In the other one, you have way too much energy. With sloth and torpor, which really means, I think sloth means kind of laziness. There's a 3-toed sloth, right? I guess he hangs around by his toes all day. I can't remember. And torpor means just kind of sleepiness, And so laziness, sleepiness, this low energy state that you can get into in meditation, partly because we never stop. So when we do stop and close our eyes, the body thinks, oh, time to sleep, because that's its only experience of stopping, because we go, go, go all the time. So, and then with restlessness and anxiety, we are we get so much energy, and we're we're agitated. And it can be physical energy. You feel your body kind of vibrating, shaking. I sometimes get restless leg where my foot just jumps and it drives me nuts, but I can't stop it. And it doesn't happen that much when I'm not meditating. It mostly happens when I'm meditating. So that's interesting. So this dullness, and I did have a long period in my meditation life, which has gone on 93, 03, 13. Oh God, we're getting into a lot of years. I started in 1993. But there was a year, I think, where every time I closed my eyes to meditate, I just kind of was gone. And 20 minutes later, I'd say, where have I been? You know, I'd like wake up because I just, as soon as I would sit, I would just go out. Luckily, that finally passed. But it happens a lot to most of us. So this dropping of energy or agitation of energy. So the first two, desire and aversion. The second two, sleepiness and restlessness. And then the fifth hindrance stands alone. The fifth hindrance is doubt. And it is said to be the most dangerous of all of them. Because doubt can take you right off the path. The things that we doubt, we generally doubt ourselves. Oh, I'm just no good at this meditation thing. You know, other people are good at it. You know, for a while I thought, I met all these meditators from Jackson, Wyoming. They were all mountain climbers. I thought, oh, you got to be a mountain climber. Plus my husband and his friends like Mark, they're all constantly hiking and climbing mountains and going to Tibet. And I thought, oh, you can't do this meditation thing unless you're a world-class athlete. And I'm like just a New York Jew, you know. I sat around and talked my whole life. I don't know anything about moving or being still. So I just kind of doubted myself a lot with that train of thought. And but so we doubt ourselves, and we have a story about why we're not good enough, or we doubt the path itself. Like, this meditation thing, it's just not the ticket. I think I'll try Sufi dancing. I bet that'll do it for me. And some people do kind of a spiritual cafeteria life. I think you have to put quite a lot of time into any spiritual practice, Sufi dancing or meditation, before you see what it's about. So, Sufi dancing is very cool, by the way. I didn't mean to cut it up. So a lot of times I think in meditation, these the hindrances are strategies that the mind uses when it's challenged. So I can go over that. Like if we're uncomfortable, you know, I'm sitting here in meditation, my knee hurts, I'm bored, my back hurts. Wouldn't it be nice to be in Mexico, walking on the beach and the sand and the breeze? I think I'll call the airlines tomorrow and get a ticket, you know? That would be so nice. So we will go into desire when we're challenged in that way, and we need a treat, right? So we'll fantasize something. And then another strategy that we use is to lash out. Like I'm having a really hard time. My knee hurts, my back hurts, and that guy, you know what he said to me today at the water fountain? I can't believe he had the nerve to say that to me. I really think he's an idiot, you know, and then you're off on your ill will. Because it's a strategy to not be with that hurting knee. Sloth and Torpor, I know we've all had the experience of being tired because we don't like something. So somebody dragged you to the mall, right? And you're not at all interested in the latest bathing suits that they want to show you every one. And you're getting sleepy and you want to just sit down in a chair and say, go try them on and wake me up when it's over. But then someone says, okay, enough bathing suits, let's go get some ice cream. And all of a sudden you're wide awake. So I've definitely had that experience of using sleepiness as a kind of resistance. And then with restlessness, some people, will go into a kind of restlessness and take a refuge in that. Let's problem solve. Let's plan what's for dinner. Let's make a menu. Let's make a list of what we're going to do tomorrow, and nail things down and be more secure than just kind of floating. And with doubt, I think it's hard not knowing. And there's a lot of not knowing when you're in the present moment. And so doubt is a way of knowing, making up your mind, not really knowing, but convincing yourself that I'm no good, this is no good, settled. I think I already said this, and I just want to say it again. The hindrances are not personal. We all go through all of them. So the idea of me giving this talk is so that in your meditation practice, when a hindrance comes, you can say, oh, look, here's restlessness. What do I do with it? So that's going to be the last part of my talk here, to suggest some ways of dealing. The 5 spiritual faculties are matched 1 for 1 with the 5 hindrances. So let me go into that just a little bit. These spiritual faculties, the Buddha said, if we practice them, they become spiritual powers. And each power works to weaken a hindrance. So I'll just go through them in the same order that I went through. The 5 spiritual faculties are, I'll just list them to get started, okay? Confidence, effort, mindfulness, concentration, and wisdom. So when those faculties are all developed and become powers, power of mindfulness, power of concentration, power of making an effort, power of confidence, power of wisdom, that's a good thing. So let's start with desire. And the power that's paired with desire is wisdom, discernment. With wisdom, we can see what's useful, what arises in the mind that's useful, and what arises in the mind that's not useful. We can let go. If we bring our wisdom to bear, we can see that, whatever it is, this thing I'm desiring may not be very good for me, may have no security to offer me. This person that I can't stop thinking about may be an absolute, scoundrel, and not anybody I want to get close to. So discernment discernment understands that the mind doesn't always know what it needs. Wisdom takes responsibility for the mind. It notices what brings peace and what doesn't. Money doesn't bring peace. Possessions don't bring peace. We see that. So it has this self-correcting because it sees what doesn't work. So wisdom for mindfulness. For desire. For aversion, the spiritual faculty to bring in is mindfulness. When we're feeling ill will, we have to become aware of it and observe it, observe the ill will, observe the hatred in our heart, and not push it away and not judge it. We just have to be with it. That's the only cure, is just being with it, experiencing it. And that is how we can work with ill will and aversion, watching it. Once you start watching, you have the observer. And the observer is not full of ill will. So right away, you've got a leg up because there's a part of you that's not hating, a part of you that's not aversive, a part of you that's watching and is got a neutrality and a mindfulness. For sloth and torpor, effort. No spiritual development happens without effort. We don't want military effort. We don't want lockstep effort. But you got to get yourself on the cushion. And once you're there, you have to make that effort to turn your attention to your breath, to turn your attention to your mind, and not to follow every story and every thought that pops up. And just, make the effort. As Woody Allen says, 90% of it is showing up. That's the effort. So you show up and you make this effort not to fall asleep. I think it's very difficult. And you also bring mindfulness. You watch the sleepiness. I have tried that for a lot of years now, and it's very difficult. But that's what you do. You try to watch the sleepiness and make an effort. You can breathe, make an effort to breathe deeply and energize yourself and work against the sleepiness and laziness like that. For restlessness, the spiritual faculty to bring to bear is concentration. Because concentration will stabilize our attention and we won't be fragmented and running all over the place. We'll just get absorbed in penetrating beneath the surface to a deeper level, and it will settle the restlessness. It will focus. And lastly, confidence is what we need when we are feeling doubt. Without confidence, you wouldn't have embarked on your first steps of meditation. You heard, a lot of you said, I heard that it would help me be calm. And so you tried it and you built confidence pretty quickly because it works you meditate for 30 minutes and you're calmer than you were before almost always for that very day. It doesn't take a year to prove itself. So you get this confidence. You may get confidence and be inspired by somebody you meet who has this calm or has something that you would like to help with your doubt, or something that you read can give you confidence. So we learn from our experience. We verify the teachings. So I have this handout, and I'll close with it, and I'll send it to you guys if you want. Can you see that? You can unmute yourself if you want to talk, because we're just going to kind of open this to discussion now. But here's the 5 hindrances, and here are the 5 spiritual faculties, and they're paired. And I just wanted to share one more teaching. I like this. I'm not sure these are teachings of the Buddha, but I think they are. Desire or greed is like being in debt. We don't have what we want. We have to get something. Aversion, ill will, is like being sick. We have an illness that has taken over our heart, our body, and our mind. Sloth and torpor is like being in jail. You can't move. There's no freedom. You just serve your sentence. Restlessness and anxiety is like being a slave. Your mind runs on and on, making lists, planning the future. You're being pushed around and you have no control. And doubt is like being lost in the desert. So here's some summaries on the spiritual faculties. So I'm not sure if I can put this in the chat. I don't think so. Does anybody know? Can you attach a file? Yeah, it looks like you can. No, I don't have any of that. Never mind. So I'm open to discussion. Maybe I'll stop sharing my screen, but you can have this handout if you want it. I'll just write down who's here. I'm going to send it to all of you, whether you want it or not. Except I don't have Elizabeth's email. If you want to give it to me in the chat, Elizabeth, I'll send it to you too. So anybody have any thoughts?
I appreciate the practical approach of being able to look at what your challenges are and then look at what the positives are to help you through them. I don't know how it is for other people, but the challenges I go through tend to vary from time to time. Sometimes one seems to be more dominant, other times something else. So this just seems very practical. I appreciate it.
Great. I hope it's helpful to you, Gabrielle.
This is one of those. This is one of those talks, Mary Helen, that I really want to go back and listen to again. And I'll also look forward to seeing your email with the written description. I thought it was very, very pithy. Pardon me.
Great, Jim. I'm glad.
I'd like to second that. I love this list of the hindrances in this explanation, especially when you came down to the bottom with restlessness and anxiety, you know, and doubt, like being lost in a desert. Boy, I certainly agree. This is really good. I like this.
Aren't they great quotes? They're
Yeah.
not mine. I think they're the Buddha's.
Yeah. Yeah, I've suffered from it all and still do. So, yeah.
In that desert.
Yeah.
Mary Helen, remind me how the worldly winds fit in.
Yeah. Well, I was just talking about them in the context of desire and aversion, because, you know, they're all, desire and aversion are usually wrapped around worldly stuff, you know. I want more money, I want more possessions, I want, you know, great relationship, everything's, you know, and we're being sold all this stuff constantly by companies with billion-dollar budgets. So, and they're just swirling around us. They're these worldly winds. So,
Yeah, I can see that. They're all about desire and also not wanting.
yeah.
What you desire most and what you don't want most.
Right, exactly. That's why they're the worldly winds. Fame and disrepute, praise and blame, pleasure and pain, gain and loss. I had to Google it. I always have to Google them. I can never remember them, but they do come up.
Well, they just came up in something I was reading in Tibetan practice, and they call them the four concerns.
Oh,
Isn't that interesting?
yeah, yeah. They do concern us, don't they? I think those, the idea of the brain going into the default mode when you're folding laundry or, you know, or meditating, when you stop all the frantic activities that we're engaged in so much, is, you know, that's where a lot of our creativity lies, in those little in-between spaces that meditation provides. And just, you know, watching a sunset.
You know, when I meditate in the morning, I'm usually pretty good. I'm responding to your sleepiness and that explanation. And I know that when I meditate at 6 o'clock at night, I get up at 5 in the morning. I work with people the whole day. I mean, and I know I'm gonna bob around and fall asleep. But I do have to say, it's sometimes the most soothing moments after a full day of work is to have just those little bobs and sleepiness. And it's like I come out of it just feeling so kind of restored, more than, I don't know how else I would get that sense of feeling restored. And
Mhm.
I know I'm not supposed to sleep, but at the same time, it's like, oh man, these are so good.
Oh, yeah, I know what you mean. It's refreshing. It really refreshes us. Because we all need to reset. You know? It's almost 7:30. Maybe I'll just do a little metta and we'll close, okay?
Yeah, it's hard to do. Let me just ask a general question.
Sure.
I try, but not very successfully, to meditate at least like 20 minutes morning and sometime in the evening, like at this hour. How many of you are successful doing that? And Mary Helen, do you have any suggestions if you agree that that's a good goal at least?
Oh, it's a great goal. Yeah, I'm uh, like Elizabeth, bound to fall asleep in the evening, but in the morning I'm alert. It's more alert for me. So I do like the morning better.
Well, I do manage that most days. And I was thinking as I was talking earlier, because the first kind of meditation I did was a transcendental meditation. It was in the early 70s. And that the directions were 20 minutes in the morning and 20 minutes, later in the day. And I think I got in the habit of that. And I meditate a bit longer than that in the morning, but 20 or 30 minutes, late afternoon is what I usually do. But it's just a habit with me. Of course, other things come up and I don't always do it, but
It's for general practice. I think it's a good practice.
Generally practice in the morning and late afternoon too, because if I try to meditate after dinner, it's all over. If my stomach is full, it's not going to happen. So I tend to meditate for half an hour, especially in the mornings when Gil is on, and then generally about 20 minutes like before dinner.
Raise your hands if you're listening to Gil.
I do. Oh, wow.
Look at that. Yeah, I thought you'd enjoy seeing that because I knew that a number of people on this Zoom are listening to him every day. Yeah. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 out of every 8 meditators are listening to Gil in the morning.
He's a really big online Sangha, doesn't he?
He does. He's such a great teacher.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Thank you guys so much for your lovely attention and presence. This was a nice evening. So we're going to come back into meditative posture and being alert and yet relaxed at the same time, striking that perfect balance between alertness and relaxed. And just taking a deep breath, this time into the heart. To put my hand there, it helps me focus on the heart, which really seems to be the seat of our capacity for our uniquely amazing, miraculous capacity for caring for one another, for friendliness, for loving kindness. It makes us human beings. So just trying to feel that capacity in your heart, breathing into it, letting it grow and expand like a beautiful golden light. Let it fill your chest, and it can run down your arms into your fingertips and through your whole torso and all the way down to your toes, up into your head, out the top of your head, till you're just filled with this beautiful sense of kindness and friendliness to all beings. This doesn't necessarily happen on demand, so just, follow along as best you can. If it's not perfectly magnificent, maybe it'll kick in. So let's take this kindness and send it directly to ourselves for a moment, keeping with the idea that you must care for yourself before you can care for anyone else. I like the traditional phrases, so I'll start with, may I be happy, may I be peaceful, may I be safe from inner and outer harm, may I be healthy in my body and my mind, may I be free. And now let's think of one person in this world for whom you care very deeply, or even it could be a pet or a child, just someone for whom it's easy to feel these feelings for you. And let's send to that person those same wishes. May this person be happy. May they be peaceful. May they be safe from inner and outer harm. May they be healthy in their body and their mind. May they be free. Now, this person in your mind's eye, surround them with all of your friends and family, all the people in this world that you love. Like a big family reunion photo. Everyone's laughing and smiling and loves you, and you love them. And just kind of pick out some of the people there. Say hi to them. And let's wish all of our families and friends these same good wishes. May they all be happy. May they all be peaceful. May they all be safe from inner and outer harm. And may all my family and friends be healthy in their bodies and their minds. May they be free. And now let's just let this expand out beyond your family and friends to all the people who live near, anybody in your family and friends who live near you, let it expand geographically. Let this golden feeling flow out of you throughout your whole house, throughout your whole neighborhood, throughout your town, throughout your state, throughout your country. Let it just spreads fast. Let it run down into the oceans. Let it envelop all the fishes and make them feel good. Every animal around the whole earth, until you hold in your heart every creature on this planet, every person. Your heart is big enough to hold and send good wishes to billions of people. That's amazing. Let's send these wishes to them all. May all beings be happy, not just on this earth, beyond this earth, whatever beings there may be, seen and unseen, born and to be born, known and unknown. May all beings everywhere be peaceful. May they be safe from inner and outer harm. May they be healthy in their bodies and their minds. And wishing the great, great wish, may all beings everywhere awaken and be free.
Namaste to all and to all.
Namaste.
Namaste.
Merci beaucoup, Mary Helen. Bonsoir, everyone.
Bonsoir.
Gabrielle. Merci.
Thank you, Mary Helen.
Thank you. Good
Thank
night.
you, Mary Helen.
Good night.
Good night.
Night.
Good night.